All right. First of all, thank you all for coming. Good to see all of you. Excited about our season. I think our guys have done a really nice job during fall camp. Excited about the progress that we've made, the trajectory that I think that we are on. It's been a very competitive camp, not just offensively, defensively, special teams, but when you break it down even more, it's been very competitive as far as positional groups go and, what that depth chart is going to be. We got a lot of new faces on this football team, got a lot of key guys back as well. But those new faces trying to figure out, what they can do, what their strengths and weaknesses are, how they fit into what we do as a team, and how we as a team can come together and be the best version of ourselves. We know we got a great opponent in Wyoming. Obviously, they're playing this weekend, and we'll get a chance to at least see where they're at because they've got a lot of new faces as well. Um, there's some good and bad to that part of it, right? Like I say, I think every year when we start the season off, this is the only time in any sport that you don't have any preseason games or things like that to kind of see where your team's at, to kind of get a feel for some of the details that are involved in a game. And so obviously them having a game underneath their belt is going to benefit them, us being our first time to walk out. But that being said, I know it's going to be a very physical game, very competitive game. I think back to 19 when we played them, one of the most physical games that we had played all year long. So don't think it's going to change from that standpoint. Coach Bowles does a great job in their program, and I know he's got some things that are mainstays to him, and physicality is one of those. So I know it's going to be a competitive game, a very physical game. Our guys have got to be ready to play, but we're excited about stepping on the field and finally getting to go against somebody else and kind of getting an idea of really where you're at and where guys are really going to flourish, and this team coming together and what it's going to be about.
Questions. We've got mics here, so when you.
Coach, 3 weeks to the day now since the first practice. What have you learned about your team that you don't think you knew going in?
Well, I think just with a lot of the new face parts of it, I think we have a better understanding of kind of where guys are fitting now, how they're starting to come together, especially on the offensive line. Obviously, we got some new faces, some guys that have been around here but have played some, haven't played a ton. Um, got some talent that has left us in that area, and so it's about those guys kind of coming together. Same thing, kind of defensive line wise, and the way those guys have progressed. So I'm excited about that part of it, and I think we've got some answers, but obviously you haven't been into those type of battles like we have in years past.
Coach, can you expand a little bit about the offensive line and just kind of what you've seen as far as the group coming together, and will the group that was playing together in the scrimmage, is that what you're looking at right now probably as your starters, or is that still in flux?
Yeah, it's still a little bit in flux. I think we've got a pretty good idea. I think we're building some really quality depth because it's so competitive right now on the offensive line. So guys, we've put in different combinations of guys at different times. I think the way those guys start kind of molding together will kind of be the indicator of it. But I think we'll have good depth in certain spots. But obviously, those guys doing it come game time is a different scenario. And so I feel good where we're at. I'm glad we still got some more time. And those guys had a good practice yesterday and look forward to getting back on the field with them today.
At the end of last season, I asked you kind of what you wanted to see from this program, kind of the next couple of years after, pulling it out from a couple of tough seasons, now a couple of winning seasons. And you said consistency. Do you feel like this is a group that can allow you to build on that consistency?
I think it is. Obviously, we've got to answer a lot of questions here at the start of the season. But that being said, I think we've got a lot of good talent on this football team. I think we've got guys with experience, some guys that are really hungry to prove what they can do when they get the opportunity to step on the field. But I think our football team understands what that standard is and continuing to try to raise that bar. And so everybody feels great at the start of the season. But that being said, I like what our team has done in prep, and I like the way we are building and trending right now.
Coach, you hit the transfer portal a lot this offseason. One of those was Isaiah Epps coming from Kentucky. You know, he's a local guy out of Jinx. You know, how special is he going to be out on the edge for you guys this season?
Yeah, I don't think we're any different than anybody else as far as the portal goes. You know, we are still with the mindset of we're going to build through the high schools, and we're going to still recruit high school athletes because I think that's how you continue to mainstay your program. But the portal is the portal, and so when it comes to roster management, I think it's got to be a significant part. And so we've had to go out and use it in that way. Isaiah being one of those guys. Luckily, we got him in January, so him having spring ball, being able to go through our off-season programs, I think that has helped him and benefited him, allowed him the ability to be more comfortable in what we're doing right now. I'm excited about getting on the field with him. Obviously, we're going to see when we step out there what he brings to the table, but what he has done in practice, what he's done in scrimmages leading up to this point, I'm very excited about that, and I think his addition to our receiving core, when you start talking about Keelan and JC and Malachi and Cam and those guys, I think he is going to be a huge plus in the overall development of our receiving core.
Back to the offensive line for a second. Just can you talk about the challenge for new offensive line coach Steve Farmer coming in, and what you've thought of him, and kind of the challenge for him to kind of rebuild that position that from scratch almost.
Yeah, I think Steve's done an outstanding job. I mean, obviously, we've got probably more new faces in the offensive line than we have in any other positional group throughout our football team. I think those guys have come along really well. I think he and Coach Franny have done a really good job of that extra time, right? Whether that's in the meeting room, whether that was doing Zoom calls with them, whether that was, the OTAs that we kind of got this summer to be able to, from a drill standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, just being able to get out there and get a feel for who he's working with and those guys getting a feel for him. I think the group is really coming together. I think Will has done a nice job kind of stepping up as a leader. I think Dylan Wade has also done an outstanding job in that sense. And so those guys that have been here that understand kind of the way we are going to approach games, the way our offensive line has to play and the significance of their play, I think they've done a good job of expressing that part of it, but also welcoming in these new faces and saying, hey, guys, we're glad you're here, but now it's time to go to work, and we're all in this together.
Coach, on Saturday, you got to see a bunch of your younger guys during that scrimmage. What did you make of your newer, younger players, and are there any kind of bright spots that might make their way into starting positions?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of competitive things going on in that scrimmage, and especially when you start looking at our secondary and some of our newer faces at corner, some of those guys that are been in our program that are at safety and getting an opportunity for them to really get quality experience and quality time right there, to understand what those drives feel like when you get onto the field, when you're not playing, hey, I'm going 5 or 6 plays in practice and then I'm out and somebody else is coming back in, but that extended drive of 8 to 10 plays and how you've got to continue to stay focused throughout that. I thought there were some young receivers that heads were spinning a little bit, but it was good for them to kind of get thrown into the fire like that because that's the way you've got to learn, and understanding how to get your breath back, right? I just went deep, now I'm coming back, now I went deep again, now I'm coming back, and now I've got, hey, this little thing, that little thing, just the detailed parts of that. So it was good for those young guys to kind of feel that part of it. I thought some of our young quarterbacks stepped up and did some good things. And, there's a couple of guys, especially D-line wise and linebacker wise, that I thought made an impact that potentially could see some action in there.
Coach, give us an overview of hello, one. 1, 2, 1, 2. Overview of your schedule, Coach. I know DT was happy to point out in the release 7 bowl teams on the schedule, 2 conference champions on the schedule, an SEC team on the road, and a team that finished in the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, That's not new around here when it comes to our schedule. So, I think we got a very competitive schedule, a very tough schedule. I think week in, week out, we've got to be ready and prepared. Guys got to understand every time we step on the field, we got to make the most of it. But there's not an opponent on our schedule that you look past at all. You open it up with Wyoming, who I think over the last 4 to 5 years, I mean, they're 7-win plus team just about every year. Northern Illinois, you look at them being in conference championship, playing for it, doing all of that. Our preseason games are going to prepare us for conference, and you know how difficult our conference is. And so we got to play it week by week, game by game. But as you look at the overall part of it, we've got a difficult schedule, but I think it's a schedule that our guys are looking forward to, and we know how competitive it's going to be.
Coach Davis. Come on now.
These guys with phones, this live,
I know,
this
right?
everybody in person thing. I mean, they're used to being on mute.
Davis Brennan, in his first year as a starter, obviously did a lot of good things, but he struggled with the interceptions. Are you able to see growth in that kind of area, that decision making, from the end of last season until now, or is it tough to tell before he plays a real game again?
No, I just think more than anything, I think he's seen a lot now. He's been in a lot of battles. He understands what his strengths and weaknesses were coming out of last season, and really trying to work and gain ground in those areas. I think he's more comfortable with the offense. I think he's more comfortable with the guys that are around him, especially from the skilled spots. Now, obviously, we got quite a new core of guys up front, but I think he understands now it's about getting the ball out of his hands, not waiting for the next thing, not trying to do too much, not be pressed, but just taking what the defense gives us and understanding guys are going to be open in certain areas and being able to deliver the ball in a way that you want to. You get into those third down situations and, as you look at it, hey, blitz is coming from this side, coming from that side. Where are my matchups? Where can I get the ball out of my hand? I think he just has a better feel for what that looks like and is, and working himself through the offense instead of vice versa, right? And so I think his confidence, his familiarity with what's going on now, I think is going to be a big play for him.
On Kendarian, is it
Mhm.
Kendarian or Kendarian?
It's Kendarian.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Kendarian.
I've heard it.
I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways.
Kendarian Ray.
Yeah.
We called him K-Ray. I think his mom may still call him by his God-given name, but I think everybody around here just calls him K-Ray.
Yeah. He talked on day one about kind of proving it to himself a little bit,
Yeah.
that he was fully back. So I'm wondering what you've seen in August. And then two, Christian was the loudest voice back there
Mhm.
last year. Is that now Kendarian? Has he graduated into, an even greater leadership role with the secondary that looks pretty talented?
I think obviously he has played himself, worked himself, and positioned himself as a huge leader in our secondary, right? He does it differently than Christian, right? But as far as making calls, getting guys on the same page, being able to coach guys up, he's seen a lot, and he's really taken that leadership role to a really good degree here. As far as him kind of proving it to himself, the injury that he had last year, it's a pretty devastating type injury for him. And his recovery and the way he's worked to get himself back, and understanding now, because as y'all don't probably know, the year before, he played pretty injured at times too. And so for him, he feels as healthy as he has felt in a long time. And being smart about how we practice him, how we use him, understanding he's got a ton of experience. He still needs the reps, but we need to be smart how we do that. And he needs to be smart and communicate that to us. I think that part has really benefited him. And again, I think he's as confident as he's ever been. I think he feels as good as he's ever have. And I expect him to have I hate to call it a breakout season, but the type of season that we know he can have.
Going back to your wide receiver core. I mean, you got 3 guys in there that have plenty of experience with Keelan Stokes, Juan Carlos Santana, and obviously Epps. Who is the front runner to be the guy, I guess, out for wide receiver, you think?
All 3 of them. I mean, we're going to spread the football around, and that's the way we've always been. You think back when we had, Josh and Kevin and those guys, and guys got touches and guys made the most of it. I don't know that as you look at our receiving core, I don't think you're going to say, hey, this is the guy, and the ball's going to be forced in his direction. I think we've got enough talent in our receiving core right now that ball can be spread around and keep defensive honest, not let them try to double team guys, overplay guys. Now, at some point in time during games, that's going to start happening. But I think there's enough talent spread throughout that group that we'll be able to spread the ball around and keep guys honest.
Big picture question, Philip. The topic of mental health for players. How much has that evolved in your experience as a coach?
Oh, I think it's leaps and bounds further than it's ever been, and I think it's been there, but not at the degree that we're at right now, right? And so, I think we are really, really fortunate now we've always had a mental health department here on campus for all of our students. We've recently been able to add Jimmy Stewart back to our program, who was here as a player, who's now been in this field for 20 or 25 years, that is really going to be dedicated to our student athletes across the board. I think that is one of the utmost things that we could have done, and thankful for Rick and the university and everybody for allowing that position to happen, because where we're at in today with our student athletes, when you start talking about social media and everything else that kind of goes into it, the pressure and the things that are put on them that they can feel from so many different outside sources, to have him here and have the ability for our guys to connect with him and him be there to help them. Obviously, we're going to be there too, but he knows what he's doing in a much better fashion probably than we do. So really excited about that part of it for our student athletes. But it is at the utmost importance as we work our way through.
Do you notice kids going to you guys more often now than they did even when you first started here or when you first started coaching? Is it easier for them to open up to you, or is that still a barrier?
No, I think, you've been around us in our program long enough to know that I think we try to handle young men in the right way. And we want to build that type of trust and relationship with our players. I think they do come to us with a lot of things. There's some things that I'm glad that they're coming to us, and we're qualified enough to help them handle that. Part of that is just growth as a young man, right? But there are times where things get to a higher degree. And that's when having somebody that is trained in that area that can really focus in and be there in a way that maybe we can't. I think that's where Jimmy is really going to be able to help us.
On Wyoming, 2 things. The elevation, does it change anything you do in terms of play guys a little bit less, give them a blow more, or have oxygen on talk to them at all, any of that? And then second part, you mentioned how physical, a Craig Bowl team plays. With so much inexperience on both lines, like, how confident are you in those guys in the trenches going into this first matchup?
Well, I'm confident in them, right? Obviously, I want to get into game times with them. I think we have more guys on the defensive line that have been in those battles that we kind of have an idea. I mean, obviously, Anthony Goodlow and his production and what he's going to bring to the table. Having Everett back is going to be beneficial. Joe has played in a ton of games. I don't want to leave anybody out. Hayden played in a bunch as a freshman, and, obviously last year didn't get to play quite as much because of injury. Having Owen back, again, played a little bit, but not a ton. Jaden Simon has played in games. So you're looking at guys with a little bit more experience on that side of it. Offensive line-wise, they've got 2 really good interior defensive linemen. And 94 and 96, those 2 guys have been there for a while. They create problems inside. They allow their linebackers to play and trigger do the things that they need to do at that position. They're a little bit newer at the defensive end spot and kind of working their way through that. So we'll kind of get an idea of what that looks like as we play it. As far as the elevation part of it goes, is it a factor? It probably can be. I think about the heat that we play in every day, the humidity that we've had. Those things are going to help prepare us. And us, it doesn't matter if it's 105 or it's raining or whatever, we're out in it and practicing. So I think our guys will handle the situation well. We got to get up there and go play in it, obviously. But from that standpoint, we're going to play it like we always play it, and we'll see how it plays itself out when we get there.
Speaking of building depth, as you were saying earlier, just can you talk about the where you are in the backup quarterback position? And it looks like Braylon Braxton and Roman Fuller seem to be the next two guys in line. How are they going, and what's your confidence level if something, God forbid, should happen to Davis?
I feel good about our quarterback room. We're younger in there. Obviously, Braylon got some experience last year in certain packages and certain schemes. I think he and Roman have really done a nice job of continuing to compete, working for each other. I think the whole quarterback room does. I think that puts pressure on Davis because they are both playing well enough to keep that on him. And so his experience factor gives him the upper hand right now. But Roman and Braylon both have had a really good fall camp. They're both two different styles of quarterbacks. I think right now if something were to happen in a game, then Braylon would probably roll in first because he brings just a different element to the field just from his athleticism and being able to not just throw but be able to run around, buy time, extend plays, and do those types of things. So I don't know that we have a true, hey, he's one, he's two, he's three. Obviously Davis is going to be our starter. We probably have, 2A and 2B right now as the way I feel about it.
When you look at your running back room, Anthony Watkins and Steven Anderson, but also Jordan Ford has been pretty impressive from what you've told me, in fall camp and this last week in the scrimmage. Where do you see this running back room?
Yeah, I think we got a lot of different styles of running backs. I think they bring all kinds of different tools to the table there. I like our room. I think it's progressing at a really good rate. I do think Jordan Ford brings some elements that we haven't seen, brings a little bit different factor in there. I think Steven Anderson really has probably had his best fall camp as far as just his understanding of his role, but also his understanding of the offense and how it plays itself. I think Bill has had a really nice fall camp as well. So I think we've got a number of different guys back there that bring different things to the table, and I think we're going to try to use them all in a sense of, hey, if you get the hot hand, hey, we're going to roll with you. And, being able to do that, I think they have a good understanding of that. They cheer and play well for each other. Obviously, they all want the football, but at the end of the day, it's about the productivity on the field and the momentum that it creates.
Last season, you guys got off to a slow start as far as wins and losses go, and then you were fighting all season long and had to finish strong to get back to the winning record. How much do you focus with the players on the importance of getting off to a fast start this season?
Well, I don't know that you put the emphasis like that as much as you put it as, hey, this is game one and we do want to get off to a good start, right? All of our attention and focus now from a practice standpoint, obviously we're still getting ones and twos works early in practice. The second half of the practice is all generated towards our first opponent in Wyoming. And so being able to kind of do that part of it gives guys an opportunity to still work some good on good situations but also to really put our focus where it needs to be, which is the emphasis on Wyoming. We know how well we're going to have to play up there and what that looks like. And I know our guys are excited to get the opportunity to step on the field with a quality opponent like Wyoming, but also come home with a win.